Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Alexis. How are you?
I'm good.
Hello. How are you?
Hey, Alexis.
I'm Al Dubin. I'm with Charter School Development.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Hi, Ava.
Welcome.
What's up,
Great to
Al?
see you, Al.
Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Let's see. Hello, Al. Hi, everyone.
Rebecca.
Hello.
Hi, Rebecca. Hello. Hi, Alexis. How are you doing, Melissa?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's been a very busy past couple of days, but you know, hanging in there.
Good.
Hi, Susan.
Hey,
Hi. Hi, Joelle.
How are you?
Well, thanks, and you?
Doing great.
That's awesome. Just want to make sure we have quorum and we'll get started. Hello there, Mark.
You're on mute, Mark.
I just said hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Thanks, Al.
Good to meet you. Well, like quasi in person or so.
Yeah, likewise.
Hi, everyone. Sharifa.
Hi,
Hello.
hi, Sharifa.
Hi.
So I will text Austin. Okay.
You do have someone with a cell phone, a phone number. I'm not sure who it is. That doesn't have a name, just so that you're aware.
That's 646 number, right? That's a New York area code. I wonder who that.
Okay.
Hello, 646 number. Just please bear with us. I just want to make sure we have quorum before we officially
Hey
start.
guys, it's Neha.
The 646 number.
Oh,
I should have known that.
I was thinking, I was
Sorry.
like, would that be Neha? I think she said she was going to New York.
It is me.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to text Austin and I think we'll be good to go. Great. Just like Austin should be joining us very, very, very shortly so we can get started. Actually, there are 5 of us, right? So we have Susan, Carrie, Neha, Sharifa, and me. Yeah, we're good. So I think we can officially begin. So good evening, everyone. Sorry, I just have to read a script because we're recording this, but it goes on public record. So good evening, everyone. Today is October the 28th, 2021, and this public meeting of the Hope Community Public Charter School is now called to order. So we will call the roll call to determine that we have quorum. Susan,
Here.
Carrie. So Carrie's here. No.
I'm here.
Okay. Sharifa.
Here.
Yeah. Neha.
Here.
So Austin and
I'm
Austin.
here as well, Rebecca.
Oh, hi, Austin. You always come in at the right time. That's amazing. Thanks, Austin.
Sure thing.
So Dana sent a text that she couldn't make it. Alteria also had some other would not be able to attend as well. And I'm here. So we now have a quorum. So we will proceed with the business portion of the meeting. So we have an agenda to review. So we have the items that are on the screen during the new business segment of the meeting. Would like to have Mark, Al and Mark share their presentation with us from the Charter School Development Corporation to tell us more about how they can support us in our efforts to purchase the Tolson building, which we discussed at the last meeting. So I'd like to ask for a motion. Well, before I do that, do we have any other additions or suggestions to the agenda? Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Susan, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been properly moved and seconded. I would like to ask for the yeas and the nays. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Do we have any nays? Abstentions? All right, the motion is approved. So thank you. We also have the minutes to review before us. And the minutes were sent to us previously. So do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I do not.
Okay,
No, I don't.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes, please.
This is Carrie Smith, and I move to approve the minutes from the October board meeting.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
October.
August. I'm sorry, September. Oh my God.
It's okay. It's almost Friday
It's on the screen, Carrie.
and it's past 5 o'clock.
Okay. Do I need to do that over?
I think it's been well noted. It's okay. And can we have someone second to your motion, please?
I can second it.
Great,
And who
Neha
was that,
did.
please? Oh, Neha, thanks, Neha. And all those in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any nays or abstentions? All right, the minutes have been approved. Awesome. So thank you. We will officially get started with the meeting. So the first item on the agenda is the CMO report.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hopefully my report is not too lengthy. Sticking to September's request, I stuck mainly to data because we have had a chance to gather our baseline data for our scholars. So the benchmark assessment that was used and that will be used throughout the school year is called the NWEA MAP assessment, and this assessment used in the network of schools with PLA. And I am a huge fan of it, mainly because it focuses, and I know Andrea and Melissa are tired of me saying this, but it focuses on progression rather than perfection. And right now with the state of education and where teachers and scholars and families are, right now we do need our focus to be on progression versus perfection, especially with our scholars being just innately like 2 years behind on top of probably already having achievement gaps prior to the pandemic. So I'm trying to pull up my own report, so it's better for me to follow that way. Sorry. So just with the map, just to kind of look at it, they're taking it 3 times a year. It helps to identify, again, it's called the map growth. I should have been more specific, but it adjusts. I love it. It is computer, but it's adaptive to the scholars. So as I explained to scholars, you know, I will take an assessment. I'll answer a question. If I get it right, it'll give me a more challenging question. If I answer incorrectly or it seems like I'm struggling, it's going to give me a question that maybe a little bit easier, so that it kind of sees where my levels are and where my readiness is. It's for math as well as reading. So our K-8 scholars have taken this assessment. So what happens is we are given a RIT score. It's called like a Roche unit score, something of that nature. And basically that number just tells or kind of expresses the readiness of the scholar. The beautiful thing about it, and I say beautiful, but the beautiful thing about it is that there are norms for grade levels, but it's not just saying this is where the second grader should be. So an 8th grader and a 3rd grader can have the same RIT score, because again, it is expressing the readiness of the scholar, which is amazing, because having that as baseline data right now shows teachers where they can meet the kids where they are. And then when we go do it again in the middle of the year, we're able to see the progression of the scholar. So it's a great thing. So I put a little note there, an explanation. So this is really colorful and it's just a lot of numbers, and I'm going to kind of unpack it for you, but also give you some time to view it as well. I'm on page 2. I'm sorry, I can't see if you were there as well. But the first chart is just the math NWA percentiles for RIT scores. So in the fall, it's kind of saying where a scholar could be in the fall and in the beginning of the year. So there are some bands. There's the low band and it goes all the way up to the high band. So of course, we want our scholars to be, you know, moving towards high, average, and high. So I have that kind of broken down for grades K to 8. I apologize that high school is there, but sometimes our scholars do fit in that level. Again, I can't see if you were there, but what I'm looking at right now is a table. And that table is basically hope scores. So I'm going to give you a chance to kind of review that. There's the grade, there's the mean score for the building. And then I have the percentage of average to high and the percentage of scholars that are low to low average. So I'm just going to give you some time to review. And if you did have time to review, I apologize. I could move on.
Oh, this is helpful. So do you mind sharing a little bit of what's happening at the third grade level, third, fourth, and fifth grades? I mean, literally most of these grades, but third especially. Third,
So,
fourth, and fifth especially.
yeah. So with third grade, their mean score is 170, right? So if we're looking at math, that is putting them at low as an average. So it's hard to say what it speaks to, but it just speaks to our kids are struggling. Our kids are low, but I always say that it wasn't something that just happened this year. It wasn't something just happened last year. So it kind of speaks to why PLA is here with Hope and to provide the support. And it speaks to the LLI and the guided reading and all the resources and initiatives we're bringing to Hope. To me, this is kind of like a backup of saying, okay, we're kind of on the right track because we see that our scholars were really struggling, as well as supporting the teachers and that being a part of this data point as well. So for third through fifth grade, I'm going to kind of blanket that statement as is, because that's the reality of the situation. And also with conversations with teachers, we had a conversation about owning the data and making sure that although that the third grade our second grade teachers are looking at third grade, fourth and fifth grade data. Kindergarten teachers need to see third grade data as well as we're first grade teachers and second grade teachers too. So that we see that we all had a role in this for the most part, and that we kind of need to continue to do the work and pass the baton together as a unit, if you will.
Yeah, I have one follow-up question, please. So for the teachers, do they get the reports based on skills? Okay.
So there's a huge breakdown. So there's a map is amazing. The map growth it's amazing. So there's various reports that they can get. They can get, of course, one for families that kind of breaks down scholar needs. There's also one that is amazing. We did a lot of work with it using the RIT score. It's called a learning continuum. So basically it takes the RIT score and groups the kids for teachers, or at least suggests groups for teachers, and it tells them what their readiness is. So a teacher can say, and this is our conversation literally, we sat in teams, we said, hey, what's an upcoming standard in math? And we looked at an upcoming standard, and we looked at what scholars were ready for the standard and what scholars really were not ready for the standard. But those scholars who weren't ready, where are they? How can we meet them where they are? So you can imagine just having that piece there allows teachers to kind of go back and not have to do so much digging. It's kind of done for them. So when they're able to get into that small group instruction, they have somewhere to start. They know, okay, I can get activities that align to the standard in small group instruction, and I can start filling in the gaps.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we can scroll down a little bit. I think it goes into reading, which is really important. Okay, I'm about to say, wait, what happened? Okay, so this is the reading. I kind of did the same as you see, just looking at, if you want to go back to look at third, fourth, and fifth grade again, I'll give you time to do that, but I chunked it a little bit because it's just a lot. So kind of the same with as far as the data points. We can stay here for a second, thank you. So it's kind of the same in regards to data points. We This is one of our data points, of course, for reading, along with the BAS assessment, which was another baseline that was provided to all scholars as well. But it just kind of supports, we're kind of seeing the same thing across the board, that our scholars are struggling with comprehension, to be exact. So we are having a lot of conversations. Just even today, we had a lot of conversations about how, like, what are some of the challenges we're seeing in the classroom, of course, but like, how can we specifically address them? And we're talking about questioning and making sure that we're providing effective questioning to our scholars day in and day out, whether that be in small group or that's in whole group instruction. So that's across the board, and also increasing vocabulary is a big piece too. So we're seeing that as a shift that needs to happen.
That's good. And is there professional development connected to that? Because I remember in a couple of classroom visits we've done in the past, that's something we've observed as well from the academic committee, that the questions were not, like higher order thinking questions, and suggested professional development around really helping teachers to craft those questions within any context, right? Any lesson plan, just with anything. Once you understand the basics of critical thinking, then you could craft those questions with any form of lesson plan.
So yes, we are having, we're going to start having those discussions about digging a little bit deeper into questioning and instruction. We've been able to do some rounds ourselves, so we're kind of identifying what needs are. But that, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a couple conversations. But again, one in particular I had today, it's just simply, and I'll be honest with you, we can, the teachers do, they like our PDs. There's a lot of information that they know they have a lot of support, but sometimes it does feel like, and I can kind of understand that from a teacher, it's like we're talking at them.
Mm-hmm.
Our teachers really like to be hands-on. So the teachers at Hope are beyond, they love to go above and beyond for their scholars. They are, but they're really focused on perfection so much. So we're trying to shift that mindset, because when they see, looking at the data, looking at the numbers, they're like ready to hit the ball running. But we want to make sure that we may have to do a start slow so that we can like just take off. So just making sure we have that, because to me, the data also speaks to there being a lack of training and development in the past as well for teachers. So
I want to add something too, if I can, real quick as well.
Please.
We're doing a close reading program. We have time dedicated to it for starting at hopefully second semester, second grade is what we're looking at, but our third graders are currently doing it. And the vocabulary and background knowledge, we know children in underserved areas, and also even children at our EL population, developing that vocabulary specifically and having that rich discourse. It has it has really, I feel like it hits a lot of the marks on what you're talking about, because it is at grade level, but a lot of it, depending on where the child is, we have that guided reading to support and that differentiated piece, so it meets the reading skills of where scholars really are. But close reading really looks at grade level text, but reading the literature, it's so rich, and the discourse and the digging deep that happens within that, it really helps to develop the vocabulary and the background knowledge that we know that there might be a lot of experience that our scholars haven't had, and it really exposes them to those in that discussion. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. That's something new this year as well.
That's awesome. Thank you. And is the close reading going to include lessons on annotation?
yes, it does. It does include annotation. So close reading, and we love to tell teachers this, because again, just trying to shift where their mindset is and have them understand the initiatives and the purpose and how it all comes together, but making sure that teachers and scholars understand that close reading is a skill. So it's not like a topic, it's not a curriculum, it's a skill that can be used for anything. So if they decide to go to, well, I'll just say this, it fits under college and career readiness. In my opinion. So it's not something that I was taught in school, but I wish I was, but it just spans across a lot of areas.
Absolutely, that's true. Thank you.
All right. So if we can scroll down, I was going to end on a high note with a couple of celebrations. We are really lucky at Hope to have an amazing reading advantage intervention team. So I know we like pictures. So I was able to snag, and thank you, Melissa, as well. We were able to snag a few pictures of some of these intervention pieces in progress and how they are meeting in small groups. I was able to recently last week see a group with Mr. Mack, who's in the right corner, and it was just amazing. The kids were writing. It's a lot of writing included. It's a lot of those higher thinking questions. It's all, you know, kind of bubbling, and I'm excited to get the ball rolling with the teachers as well for guided reading. They're really excited to get ready with that too.
That's awesome. And speaking of the teachers being interested in PD that's that's hands-on, I'm always a fan of some people call it the Japanese lesson study approach or professional learning community approach, but that allows them to even model their own lessons, critical friends, right? Critical friends approach as well, like to allow them to model their own lessons and give each other feedback and analyze student work. So
and I'm glad you said that. We have been discussing recently, I think Miss Pella, I don't know if it was Miss Pella or Melissa, but having like a way for teachers to have access to other teachers and just kind of go in and like maybe like a way of teachers can post, hey, I'm doing I don't know, annotations today in class. And if I'm struggling with annotating or I'm not familiar with it, I can go into Rebecca's class and watch her do annotation for students. So I know, I'm sure they love hearing my voice. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but how better is it to get it from your own colleague, right? So I'm glad you said that. Like that tells us we're kind of on the same page. So that's perfect. Yes, and then that's their data wall in the middle. So data walls are spread throughout the building virtually, as well as in classrooms and around the building, which is great. So everyone owns the data. And I think we could scroll down a little bit more. I may have something else I can't remember. Oh, I'm done. Any questions for me? Comments? If not, okay. I think
have a comment.
Yes.
So what dates are you scheduled to take the mid-year assessment and the end of year assessment?
I was looking at it. I want to say it's either December or January.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So the irony of January sometimes is by the time they come back from the holidays, you kind of have to refresh the refresher.
Yeah.
So
I won't lie, it's something I think about in the shower quite a bit. Like, oh man, is there a way I can manipulate it a little bit? Like, oh, but I do want to say it's around that time.
Okay, that's helpful to know, so we can actually compare the data, the baseline to awesome, very good, and hopefully we can also like start tracking by the year as well. So we're that's great.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
I guess that's my cue. Good evening, everyone. I have to follow behind Alexis's wonderful presentation. No stress here, but good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Hi, please.
Hi.
Hi. So just to give a couple of updates, we'll start with our before and after care program, which I am quite excited about. It took a lot of working together among teachers as well as school leaders to develop a program quickly that would meet the needs of our teachers, of our families. We wanted to make sure that the program that we had in place was safe. That was something that was very important to me. And so unfortunately, there was a history of having an aftercare and before and aftercare program that wasn't safe. And so it was important in our quest to find a vendor that safety was at the forefront. And so within our search, we didn't come up on what we thought we would, but what we have done is work together as a team to provide a temporary program for our families that are in dire need of before and after care services. The way that we've set it up is to promote leadership among our school faculty. So our teachers who are involved, they are all actually coordinators, and they're facilitating and managing our volunteers. So it gives them an opportunity just to practice some of their leadership development in terms of developing programs and managing staff, giving feedback. So this is kind of their first opportunity in that leadership space. So our before care services start at 6:30 and they end at 7:50 a.m. right before arrival. Our aftercare session is from 3:30 until 6 p.m. And we started on October 18th. And so far, both our students who are a part of the program as well as our parents have shown that they're pleased. They were really, really anxious to get started with the program. And I think a lot of them, the feedback from the company that we had previously, they are grateful that we did away with them. And they were quite patient. Sometimes they weren't patient because they really wanted it, but I had to make sure that it was something that was going to be safe, be well planned. And so we are delighted to have started that. And so we'll see how it goes through our search for a vendor, but our teachers have really, really just jumped in, and I say it's better than the vendor that we had before. So, all right, next slide. All righty. So this is our attendance as of October 8th. Our staff attendance, we're at 90.1 as of October 8th. And for our scholars, unfortunately, we were at 77.12%. Now we are at the end of October, and actually we have noticed some additional dips in our staff attendance. Our student attendance has held pretty steady, maybe increased slightly. We've had a lot of discussions about staff attendance, and of course, that's a contributing factor. We do have higher stress levels than normal, just admittedly with the adjustment to coming back to school, some of the just anxiety about COVID. We are finding that it's having a bit more of an impact on our teachers. That's just the reality of it. And so one of the things that we are working on is how to best alleviate some of that stress, or just continuing to make sure that we are super supportive of our teachers. That is one of our primary focuses for our leadership team. And so that's kind of where we are with our staff attendance. With our student attendance, we're finding some challenges. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you can see that we're finding challenges. Some of our families are just very respectful of the fact that if my child's nose is running even a little bit, it could be COVID, I'm gonna keep them home. That's a factor. We still have some families that have expressed they're still dealing with the anxiety of having their kids come back to school. And so we're finding that that is one of the big contributors to our attendance rates being the way that they are. We do have some cases where we're actually putting together our first home visits with our attendance team and putting some attendance plans in place. We did have some difficulties locating certain families or getting in contact with certain families just with changes of numbers and things of that nature. But the next thing on our agenda is to start making home visits and putting attendance plans and supports in place. That will be conducted by our school social worker as well as various leadership members on our attendance team. All right, next slide. I just wanted to provide just a complete clarity on enrollment. I know there may have still been some questions among the board members of where we actually stood. Our targeted enrollment was 375. Our actual enrollment is 281. And then that's at a 75% of our goal. Myself, our enrollment specialist, as well as our parent engagement task force, One of our big agenda, we have a lot of task forces at Hope. And so on our parent engagement task force as well, in conjunction with our enrollment specialists, have started having discussions and putting plans in place on the grade levels that we want to target, and how we want to draw in our families that are in our school. So one of the things that we've noticed about Tolson is they're filled with families. So my cousin and my cousin's cousin, it's like, oh my gosh, please do not offend one family member, because it's like 10 more of them. And then the grandma calls, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, that was your cousin. So one of the things that we know about that school is that there's a lot of relations in the school, just in terms of families. And so we are trying to draw in our families through Parents Nest, but also thinking of ways safely that we can start to invite our families into the school in very small increments. We want to get them involved in our events that we have for our scholars, not just in terms of volunteering and helping out, but also being a part of the idea and the creations around what is important to our families to see for their students. And so hopefully at our next board meeting, we can report just some of the feedback and hopefully some increased engagement in our Parents Nest. We actually have a meeting tonight. We were double booked, but we didn't want to change it. We do it every third Thursday. But we have encouraged our families, if they, some families wanted to know, or actually our enrollment specialists, well, we have the board meeting and Parents Nest tonight, but just to stick to our time. If any parents missed it, we have actually recorded Parents Nest for tonight in case it was missed. So we have there, that is it for that slide. All right, in the same vein as Ms. Giles, I did try to add a few pictures. What you see is some of our pre-K students we've added. We're trying to add extra layers of support of COVID safety in our building. And so our operations team got us face shields ordered. And so we're all walking around looking like we're going to space throughout the day, but anything that we can do to keep students in school. You know, we're at a point where a lot of our students are not vaccinated. Our parents still aren't sure about it. We're getting into winter months. And what we want to do is just make sure that any layer of protection that we can have for our students is going to keep them in school. If they're not sick, they're going to come. And so that is our hope there. We have, in addition to COVID safety, we've made some adjustments with our fire drill, just to improve on time from some of the times we've seen over the years prior to COVID. We've had to change some of our routes. Our dean, our behavior interventionist, as well as myself, walked out some of our plans, and our numbers have improved in comparison to years prior. And so we had our fire drill, we were at 237, and that's moving pre-K 3 through 8th grade. And so we actually have a goal set, school-wide goal set, to do better by 20 seconds at our next fire drill. So that is what we have for general safety and COVID safety. All right, so for our family engagement events, this is kind of a list of things that we have planned for October. Some things have already happened, which have been quite fun. Our Purpose in Pink Parade, everyone just celebrating and acknowledging Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Our anti-bullying essay contest closes tomorrow. And so we're looking forward to reading those essays and awarding students in grades middle school, actually 3rd through 8th grade, I'm sorry. And then announcing that. So in our next meeting, that will be a part of my share. We have Parents Nest tonight, and then we have our virtual Hispanic Heritage presentations that will be happening in November for the work that we did in October. All righty, next slide. And just in the same vein, again, with Ms. Giles, we've talked a lot about being data driven. And so this year was important to balance between building a strong culture with our staff. As we know, that's been an area of growth for the Tolson campus. But we also wanted to make sure that we're really being intentional about instruction. Our scholars have been virtual for 18 months. And so we've realized that we have a lot of work to do. So each teacher in grades pre-K through 8th grade have what's called a Master Scholars Board. And they chart Master Scholars, that means 80% mastery on the weekly assessment. And they're charting those scholars as Master Eagles. So along going vertically, the scholars are numbered. Looking at their assessment data each week, students have an entire month to master certain standards. And so this is just a snapshot of our data boards. And I think there's one more. Oh, and just going back to balance and remembering that our kids have been out of school for a while. So social emotional learning is very important in making sure that we're also educating the entire child, their heart and mind. And so with that, this is just an example of our Scholar of the Month. We do it for middle school, preschool through 8th grade, and it's tied directly to the core virtue of the month. So I think the month of September was forgiveness, either forgiveness or empathy. And so that scholar that's recognized, it's in relationship to the scholar that was exhibiting that core virtue. And also some connection to kickboard as well, kickboard points. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. Are there any questions or comments that anyone has? And I'll try my best to answer.
I just have a question around that, the before care and after care.
Mm-hmm.
So this, you're seeing this as a temporary solution to those services, and that staff are they're running this program. Is that what you're thinking?
That's my thinking. We did not get any bids or any bites for a before after care program. The bid was put out
Really?
late August. We didn't.
Huh.
We couldn't go with, I don't want to mention the company, but
Sure, that's fine.
company, any longer. And so there wasn't a bite, which we didn't expect. And so we just wanted to make sure we knew that there were some parents that really had a need and it was going to impact their employment. And so, we played around. Even after we didn't get a bid, we reached out to 3 companies, not myself, but.
Right. So you did some proactive trying to generate.
Yeah, Springboard, Campania, and they just weren't. I think what my analysis of it is because and he also goes to a school in the before and after care I thought I was going to have. I also don't have. I think just like we have a shortage with teachers, this is my theory, that we also have a shortage of people willing. If you're making minimum wage, it's COVID, being in a school with a ton of kids, if you can make this minimum wage doing something else.
Right.
Just my theory, because it's just, I did not expect that to happen, but it just come to find out. My son goes to Friendship and they've run into the same issue.
Just to confirm Ms. Pella's theory, that is the case. When we did make the phone calls, a lot of them just did not have the capacity to take on another site. They were short-staffed in some places, and some of them were looking to even change how they operated as of kind of post-COVID. Some of their staff weren't comfortable coming back into the space, so they did lose several people. So that is a true statement in terms of the theme we were seeing in the various places that we did call.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense when you say it out loud, but to not get a bid just seems so strange. So do you feel like you have the capacity with staff to keep going in this way, or how's it feeling?
Well, the way that I organized it is that each teacher who is acting in the role of a coordinator is actually supervising volunteers. And they do it on a rotating basis. So they actually only do it twice a week. Because one of the things I was really afraid about was burnout. So,
right. Yeah.
And so each teacher or future teacher leader, they do it twice a week. And so I'm hoping that helps. If it does end up being a little bit longer term, my plan is for the second half of the year, if it ends up being the entire year,
right,
take those persons out and then give another set of teachers another opportunity.
And we're compensating them, right? There's some,
yes.
Okay.
They are getting compensated.
Good.
Yeah,
It's good.
Okay.
fair
Yeah.
labor laws.
Yeah, they're getting compensated. And then we do have a fee for families as well. It's pretty
Mhm.
normal compared to
Sure.
other places. And so I mean, this is the practice of some schools.
Mhm.
But, just providing I feel more comfortable with it other than
Mhm.
burnout. I don't want to say I like to have control over it, but just in terms of knowing what you have and the people that you have who are interacting with children.
Sure.
Sometimes when you leave, it's, that, you have your kids left over with people that you don't know so well. So sometimes
Mhm.
it's a little bit, it's a little nerve wracking.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So, it may be something that we continue to do. It may be
Mhm.
something we have had discussions. Ms. Morris had an idea that maybe if we do, if this becomes long-term, maybe we could hire, it can just be our program for our
Right. Yeah.
and the way that we want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've definitely had been involved in that kind of a situation too. We just brought people on. They just were our staff, and it was, and that program really grew. I don't know if it was because of that or what, but there's a high familiarity with the folks running the program because they were former teachers or they were parents. I mean, they were part of the community before they took on those roles. And I don't know, my kids went. I mean, it was just part of the whole package kind of. And there's a lot of confidence in it. People, and kids just felt really good, comfortable, safe, the whole deal.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's value in having the members of the community be the ones involved
Yeah.
in the before and after school program, definitely. So yeah, I mean, we can look at the cost and benefit of still exploring an external partner, but if COVID is still here for the foreseeable future, then we may really just start to consider this as a long-term plan where we have our staff run the program. And I think we talked about that at the finance committee as well, even as a cost-effective way to manage this process. So I'll leave that to you and Melissa to determine how best to do that, where we have our full-time staff managing the program without, overwhelming the teachers who are in the classroom, so they can kind of have their time back. Melissa, how feasible is this in terms of the timeline to do the restructuring we discussed at the finance committee meeting, where we may be able to have some full-time staff help manage the program?
To be honest, I'm not quite positive, but I think that's something I just mentioned it just since Tuesday talked with Ms. Pella a bit about it. But I think, that's something that we will kind of hammer out as kind of like you said too. I'm not sure what we were hoping to get someone to come in, but yes, what we discussed at the meeting, I think we need to put a long-term solution together. So if that's the route we definitely take, that we're ready to go and transition into that.
Absolutely. Another possibility we discussed is even having some of our current full-time staff change their schedule. So they won't have to, so for example, if they're currently working from 8 to 3, then about 3 particular, not specific staff members, but maybe 3 particular roles in the school may have that flexibility to be adjusted, where they would come in from maybe one group will come in from 10 to 6 p.m. and then another group will come in the morning. But just how many teachers do you typically have per day? Or how many staff members do you typically have per day? Or coordinators, as you call them.
So there's one coordinator per day, and then the remainder of the staff are volunteers. So the model is that way, because with volunteers, we can't have students with volunteers alone. They're volunteers. And so that's the model. So there's as of right now, there's 1 teacher per day. If our numbers grow, our number of scholars grow, because the program is not subsidized, we're thinking that may be, we don't have very high numbers just yet, But if
Mhm.
the program grows, then there will be opportunities for potentially hiring additional staff. But for now, that's the model that works with the number of students that we have.
Okay, so perhaps we could look at what we currently pay on an hourly rate in comparison to what we can save if we move some existing roles into that space. Does that make sense? So their hours are just are adjusted as full-time staff, but they fit those roles. I mean, they fulfill those duties. They shift their roles, and we don't have to pay the extra that we are currently paying to teachers now. And that way, they also will have their time back, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. Great, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Sorry, are you the one, is it going to be on facilities that will talk about the COVID random testing?
I can actually speak to that right quick.
Okay.
So we do have a nurse services. It started, it's in place. The nurse resource is full-time. And the nurses areas, we did not have to go through and do a full remediation that was originally planned with our first provider. We were thinking that would be required, but it's not, so we're saving there. But when it comes to the on-site COVID testing, we are still exploring some different options. The nurse that we brought on through Quadrant, she was able to share with us a resource that provides on-site testing for both scholars and for our staff. And so we're just looking through to understand a little bit more, get more information around what are the associated costs for being an on-site staff. I'm sorry, an on-site testing location. And then also if there are any charges that our families or even our staff would incur, like if it's the insurance or things like that, we're very clear in understanding what that will be. So we're still exploring and getting those answers from that particular resource that we have right now. So.
What about the one that Carrie, board member, shared?
I'm not sure exactly which one that is. Is there a?
I think I forwarded that to someone on your team.
Okay, I can follow up and see if it's the one and the same as the one that has been shared by our board member. This one was called Cura. I don't want to chop up the name. Curastat, something of that nature. I don't know if that's the same one or not.
Well, you share the other updates, so I'll check and confirm that.
Not a problem. And we'll be happy to follow up with them as well.
Okay.
And just from another small facility standpoint, we have been able to clear out several big rocks that we had. Really, we've been looking at what can we do internally first before having to go out and spend. And so we have been able to fix the gate, clear out the cafeteria, the curriculum room, the library, and declutter it so it can be used for our staff and our scholars. And our next major project is currently, we have about 8 storage units that are holding a lot of just different things that we've inherited over the years. And so we'll be doing some decluttering of that area. Hopefully we can get rid of some of those units and then maximize the ones we do need to keep to help continue decluttering some of the areas of the school and be able to use it for storage of things that's needed there. So that's our next major project that we have coming up in the next week or 2.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So I sent this. Trina, you supervise Trina, right? So this email was sent to Trina.
Trina is no longer with us. She has left. We actually are in the process of onboarding a new hire to backfill that position. She is looking to start on November 8th. So in the meantime, it's myself and Julia McLeod, as well as in coordination with our custodial staff that are blocking and tackling several of the projects with the support of Ms. Pella and Ms. Stone and Ms. Giles.
Okay. So the company is called ITDS.
No, Rebecca,
Oh,
IPS
I'm sorry.
is the school and
That's the
Shield
school.
T3 is the company.
Shield, that's right, Shield C3, thank you. Pardon me.
Sorry,
So I'm going to
Shield.
forward that
You
T3.
can forward it to me. That would be fantastic. And we can definitely
Yeah,
follow
I'm
up with
surprised
them.
I didn't get to you because I actually forwarded that to quite a number of people. So
How's
Happy
the,
to-
I just have a quick question. How's the outside, the new outdoor space functioning? Are you guys feeling like are you using it? Is it helpful? Is it like, what's going on with that?
We use it every day,
Okay, good.
literally.
I just want to know. It's like, you know.
From PE
Right.
to recess to activities to assembly type things, we use it every day. It's
Okay.
a nice addition to the school because it's
Awesome.
small and not having like a multi-purpose room
Mhm.
spot. So we don't know what's gonna happen when it gets super cold, but
Right.
when the weather permits, that's the spot. So
Great.
it's really nice. The kids really liked it. The parents were in awe of it as well. It was a nice addition to the school.
Good. I'm really glad.
great. Um, so I'll also forward another information from someone who had reached out to share some of their services around creating a modular space. So that may be something we could consider for the winter. But I have sent the information for the COVID test. Please let's prioritize that if we can get this started by next month. And most places don't charge if the insurance could cover it. That makes it easier on us and less expensive. But the tests are random too, so that also means not everyone in the school has to take it. And for those who opt not to get vaccinated, it's their responsibility to get tested at a reputable place and upload their weekly tests through the channels that you determine. So, but please let's make that a priority. And if we could add to our subsequent monthly reports, any information on attrition, like the staff members who leave, the staff members we gain, the students who leave, the students who we gain monthly, that would be helpful. It was very helpful to see the attendance reports today. So yes, if we could please add that for staff and students too. How many are we gaining and how many are we losing? And if there's any context around that to share, that would be helpful as well. I'd be curious to know more about trainers leave it or whoever else.
Oh, I just want to add, this is Carrie, that the Shield T3 program is through a partnership with Aussie. So you may want to contact them about the testing.
Oh, that's good to know. Thanks, Carrie. So that may be covered by the government. DC actually has some funding for COVID. And did anyone attend the DC PCSB school leaders meeting last week or 2 weeks ago or so? Oh, great. So they also talked about another grant opportunity, right? And they provided someone's email address to contact. And I think they have a new program through AmeriCorps, but for health workers. And I'm not sure the details of what the health volunteers, most of them not workers, provide, but these are literally free things through the government or the independent agencies of the government to the schools. So we really should take advantage of those resources. And I'm not sure if that would be the parent coordinator who's handling that, not to add more to anyone's work, but but these are resources we should take advantage of to benefit the school. So I may have the information from DCP CSB, but if not, I think the slides were emailed afterwards. So those contact details should be on the slides. And just one last question, please. Where are we with having a virtual option for students if they fall sick? And potentially having a virtual option for students or families who are just not comfortable yet?
So Ms. Pella, do you want to talk about what happens right now if kids have COVID and kind of if they're sent home or in quarantine?
Yeah, so what we've put in place, if a child is quarantined, of course they get asynchronous work. Most of our program is on Google Classroom, but then we also do our version of live streaming so that the scholar can actually see and be a part of what's happening in the classroom. That's been pretty effective so far. Just to make sure that, our parents, it is important to them that they still have, some schools will do just the asynchronous, which, can count when it comes to attendance, but just taking it that extra step, and parents have appreciated that their children can still be a part of the live classroom. So the way that we've done it is we've used a spare laptop, and we position it so that the child is able to see the full view of the classroom and participate and be a part of the instruction that's happening.
That's great.
And we do have a scholar too. I think we talked about, Rebecca, that did have a medical exemption. And so we have everything set up for that scholar as well.
Great.
So that
Thank
I wanted
you.
to, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. I'm not sure what's next. I apologize. I can scroll back up, but I would lose my place.
Financial update. It's okay.
Okay,
The financial
sorry.
update. That should
I
be
have to
quick
scroll back
because-
down to page 20.
Yeah, I'm
Perfect.
looking at the time as well. So we can-
Okay, very good.
Super. I will, Dan was not able to make it, so I'll tackle his slide in his absence. We'll keep the financial piece really brief. Finance Committee just met on Monday and reviewed everything in detail, and we will continue to since we're getting into the meat of the year and getting better visibility for the year. So on the slide on page 19, just a few key items that we will always, of course, watch. The most important at the very top of the page in green, days cash projected at year end at 93 at 2.67 million. Always keep a close eye on that versus the target of 45 days. So nicely ahead of that. The gross margin, at negative 28%, that is, we have a one-time events mixed in that, so it's not necessarily entirely reflective of operation. Just a few additional notes. Let's go down to the budget versus forecast. Just a few pieces here. We spent a good deal of time working on plans for the forecast based on current. So what we have to do there is update the initial budget to actual enrollment at 280. And the difference there, that puts us at about a $1.1 million additional deficit that we will work towards resolving through many of the pieces that we talked about tonight. Looking for ways to do things a little bit better with lower cost options. So looking to do that, and of course not impact the experience for staff and scholars. So really they're having really scrubbing each and every expense to be sure that it is necessary and try and close that gap. At the same time, we're scrubbing the revenue side to see if there are any places that we can pick up additional state and federal revenue on grants, and anything we can do to also speed the grant collections up. So that's really where we are. There's two additional columns there. The year-to-date actual to budget. That's the first quarter of the year. It shows currently at a deficit, that the actual deficit is somewhat better than the projected. That's a tough number, the first quarter, because for one, the enrollment was not finalized. So we're going to see adjustments for that. But then there's also the one-time lease adjustment. So that really, those aren't terribly impactful numbers. They will be more impactful as we move into the second quarter of the year and can measure against forecast. So I'll stop there for any questions, and I have two other updates once we finish this slide.
Thanks, Eva.
Super. The other two updates that I have are what we talked about really last week, the PEX cards and also the training. So interesting transition on the PEX cards. We go to set it up and their PEX is added because it's become quite an in-demand product now. Because it does offer those additional accounting controls, we have to provide the LLC and certificate of incorporation for Hope. I'll work with Nicole Scott on that piece, but they also want government issued ID and the individual listed as the controlling member on the beneficial ownership form. So they want to know who is the beneficial. Of course, we explain it's a 501c3. They still want a beneficial owner, so a person attached to it. So I am working with them to see if we can work around that, because we have 20 accounts set up. If they will create Hope as a subset of ours, its own, with its own bank account and own articles. But so more to follow on that. In the interim, we are using PLA PEX cards if we need to. Again, we try to keep any expenses that are out-of-pocket expenses to a minimum at the school. It keeps everyone planning ahead, and thank everyone at the school for always doing that. So hand in hand with that is the training. We have the training ready to go, but we'll do it hand in hand with the PEX. Now, know that they're really Miss Pella and the operations manager are the only people that initiate spending requests. So we have very good controls on that and work, every expense request goes through at least 3 touches and 3 approvals. So really close controls on expenses with or without the PEX while we build out that process. So I'll stop there for questions.
Sounds good.
Questions? All right. So we'll take a quick look at the agenda. The minutes again, just from last month, so just to make sure we address all the action items.
It's like school PEX, staffing trained. Yep. And I know that we talked a bit about, I know as we were talking about the enrollment piece, we'll be also providing an up-to-date enrollment update with the finance committee as well as our monthly board meetings.
Yeah, that works. Okay. All right, so great. We have touched on all the action items, and I think there will be 2 more from this, kind of flowing into the minutes for the subsequent minutes again, on training and the PEX card. So that's fine. All right, great, thank you. So we'll have Al and Mark share with us their proposal. As we discussed last month, and just over the last couple of months, we have been working towards improving the school on the academic side, the operations, and the financial side. We relinquished our charter to operate at Lamond because we were paying about $800,000 and pretty much in a deficit in rent, over market value. And at Tolson, it's about $400,000. And so we will be in a better position if we actually purchase the building. But at the same time, we're hoping that we're in the best financial place to do that. We have been talking with our bank, BB&T, and Charter School Development Corporation will help support that process, or could help support that process, working with our bank and or through other resources. So RC is also another resource that provides grants to school, low interest loan to schools to purchase a building. And at the end of the day, if we're not there financially, another thing that Mark's company can do is set up a structure with us where it's a lease to own structure. but I'll let them talk more about their organization and what they could offer us and what they do. Over to you both. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us. We really appreciate hearing about everything that's going on there. It's unfortunate the times that we have that are contributing to the drop in enrollment. Certainly the 3,000 per pupil that you usually get from Washington shrinks the amount that you've got toward the building. In charter school development, we've been around for 25 years. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our sole mission is to help charter schools in areas with failing schools or that need help. We provide them with financing and financing advice, as well as some development, as well as just some direct loans for their facilities only. We've helped well over 200 schools across the country over the past 20 years in helping them to get their facility, whether we develop it, build it, or whether we buy it for them, lease it to them, or we lend them enough money to help them, or use our credit enhancement money to help them put up the collateral to get the financing that they need themselves to do it. So as a result of that, we've worked with the Phalen organization for some years now, and as well as we've worked with people like KIP, and we're funded with the single largest recipient of the Department of Ed Credit Enhancement Facility Funds. And we have significant funds available right now to be used, as well as the Walton Family Foundation has given us some money to use for helping schools. So Mark has been kind of looking over all the documents that Rebecca has kindly forwarded, and with trying to get a grasp on what you need. And we've kind of agreed the principle on what your options are. There's three main options, and I'll let Mark go into all the options and where we go. But right now, unfortunately, the drop in enrollment, I think, is going to probably pull out about $250,000 from what you would normally have for your rental payments or for the facility financing on the debt service. And we'll have to start to take a look at alternatives to try to bring those numbers down. And we'd certainly like to work with you to help you on that. And we're looking forward to seeing if we can find a way to give you what you need without too many headaches. Mark, I'll let you go from there.
Thanks, Al. My name is Mark Zeisel. I'm a vice president with Charter Schools Development Corporation. Rebecca, we sent you all, I don't know what you've shared with your board, but a proposal which, just outlined what Al just kind of provide an overview on our background and our qualifications and track record and scope of services that we're proposing for this project. So
Sure.
Rebecca, we can elaborate. I can elaborate on anything you'd like.
Yeah, you could just talk through the document you shared. So I shared the proposal and the draft service agreement, just to get a sense of what the terms could be, and any questions anyone has.
Great. Feel free to stop me at any point. So we provided a proposal for, I don't know what we called it, but some sort of owner rep type role where we will represent Hope in the acquisition of the property and also the financing of the property. So we will, negotiate with the seller, and alongside that, we'll be speaking with a number of financing sources to, BB&T, certainly if that's where you want us to start, but we can certainly expand that as, and if needed, to include bond underwriters and charter school bond funds, and a host of others. We can certainly speak with OSSI about their sub debt, which we're very familiar with. We've we actually started as a Washington, DC based company. We're headquartered out of Hanover, Maryland now, but we've owned DC properties. We most recently sold a building actually in Brookland in 2017, a charter school to Mundo Verde. And we know the market quite well. I just actually relocated from DC after living there for most of my life. I live in Philadelphia now, but in any event, I know the commercial market very well there. And we know the folks with respect to the financing who would have an appetite for this type of project. And Rebecca, as you alluded to, I think the model that would result in the most attractive financing for the school would be for the school to own the real estate on its balance sheet and be the owner and the borrower for the debt. So I think that's looking at your historic financials. I think you're well positioned given your 15 years of operating history and cash and cash balance, and then also your days cash on hand, and just being a tier 2 school in DC. Yeah, I think that's the route we'll pursue first, and we'll see what the appetite is for that. But we also have a turnkey development program where we can acquire properties on our balance sheet and enter into lease to purchase agreements with charter schools. And the terms are very attractive compared to a lot of the groups that we compete against. And all those leases have a purchase option at 105% of cost. So it's a fixed price purchase option that can be exercised at any time during the lease term. So, we have multiple options here that we can pursue. And like Alice said, we very much welcome the opportunity to help you all out.
Thank you. So from our conversation with the bank as well, Truist, the lady mentioned a new market tax credit as another opportunity that we could look into. And we've confirmed that Hope Tolson is located within the neighborhood that will qualify for the new market tax credit. So I just thought it would be good to have Mark and Alan Mark come talk to us just to give us a sense of their company, what they can, well, nonprofit, of course, what they can help us with. They were referred through PLA because we're in a place where we are not sure of how much we may qualify for. We may just be able to take on the debt on our own, which I think would be great. But even with that, we'll still need an entity that can help with the negotiation process. And the benefit of CSDC is that they can help with the negotiation process and accomplish our goal if we are able to get financing on our own. And if we're not able to get financing on our own, they could still help with the negotiation process, help us to get the financing in order to accomplish our goal. So either way, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but either option puts us in the position to accomplish our goal. Are there any questions?
Well, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on just kind of our enrollment trend and, how critical that is to, how do banks or lenders look at that? Is it, you mentioned, days of cash and so on. And I get that that's also an important criterion, but I'm just kind of wondering what you're thinking about enrollment.
I think, although you hate to equate a child with actual money, but each child is really worth $3,000 toward your facilities as far as on either a rental basis or on a finance basis, from the District of Columbia. So every child you lose is $3,000 less you're being, compensated for through the district. Your best bet is hopefully, this COVID thing is going to abate at some point, not too much longer. And I don't know if you have any online students right now that, basically are eventually going to come back within the building. But in a way, if you get them in the building, at least on count day, you could probably add them to the amount that you could get with the district. So I'm not sure how exactly they do the Conte there in DC. Mark probably knows.
We did it.
Yeah.
So,
But
but yeah, if you're gonna, certainly you don't want to see the drop much further. You're still, looking at over $800,000 of money from the district coming in, even at your current level of
Mhm.
281. So
Mhm.
it's still a big number. Unfortunately, you've got an owner of the property right now that has an inflated idea of what the value of the building is.
Right.
If there's a way to get him to come down on the cost of it from the 21 million to something reasonable, say in the 16 to $18 million range, I think that more than likely you can overcome all the
Okay.
issues on the enrollment. And that would be a big part of what we try to accomplish, to try to convince them that, really the school needs the help at this point. But maybe even if there's a way to convince them to hold a seller note so that we don't have to go in and do as much financing through commercial strategies. So
Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. And with the new market tax credit, it's usually an incentive for owners as well because they get a tax break. So I think that's another opportunity for us in negotiating with the owner.
right, and that's again, you would have 7 years would be interest-only payments. You have to maintain certain employment levels and so forth, but you'd be basically a 7-year interest-only payment. Then you would start paying full interest, but you'd have to do what's called an unwind, and you would also get a credit, more or less towards equity in the building at that point. There'd be a note that would be forgiven based on the fact that, whoever's giving you the tax credits is getting 7 years of, I guess, tax abatement for creating that new market tax credit. So if they get all the credits, part of the one note will be forgiven and that becomes your equity. So depending on how much we can get a new market tax credits, usually can figure about 25% of maybe of the note, 20 to 25% could be forgiven.
Yeah, so that I think that would be helpful as well. With what do you think?
Unfortunately, you've got to seek out the places to get it. There should be money available. There's enough organizations. The latest round just went through, and I forget, I think there were like 42 recipients that probably served the charter school market at one point or another that may have some of that money available. We just have to find the right one and see if we can cobble together enough of the credits so it makes an impact, and find what's called a leverage lender to put in the balance.
Gotcha. And I think our bank offers it, if I'm not mistaken. And once we solidify this understanding, then we can definitely start to, officially begin the conversations and make the connections. And as you rightly mentioned, even with our current enrollment, we're still in a good position to pay the mortgage if we could get the sale price at a reasonable amount that's within market value. And typically, when there is a transition, because the capacity at Tolson is about, let's say, roughly 400, I think, at a decent size where the classrooms are not overcrowded. It's been estimated at 475, but I think that's more with like an overcrowded classroom, which will not be feasible in COVID, and even just in general, to have a positive school and classroom experience. So even at if we can aim towards 375 to 400 maximum, it takes schools about 2 to 3 years to get there when there's a new management. And of course, one of the reasons we had to let go of the former company was just the huge drop in enrollment as well, in addition to so many other things that you've heard about during this meeting. So I think it's worth pursuing. I think we actually will still save money if even with our current situation, if we're able to purchase the building, because we'll be paying less in rent and actually owning the building. So I personally think it's something we should consider. And I'll follow up just to find out if we need to actually, vote on this process, considering that it's a fixed cost, but it's a cost that's embedded into the actual transaction. So I just need to confirm with our authorizer what the policies are around that. And if we have to take a board vote or not, then we'll, hopefully solidify this arrangement pretty soon once we get a good sense of what the requirements are.
When you're ready, we'll be there and we'll be ready, and we'll stick
Yeah,
with you as long as it takes.
So that's another question. So when we did the Lamond process, it pretty much took us 60 days to literally go through the entire transaction. Would that be feasible in this context to aim for 60 days? Maybe even if possible, maybe before the end of this year. It's usually harder in December though, just because, and Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure if the end of this year would be that feasible, but just 60 days.
Yeah,
in general.
market tax credit deal is probably 120 to 150 days minimum.
That's right. That's true. I
and
forgot about that.
It's an awful lot of meetings that will require, some of your staff time, and so that's a longer process. A traditional bank financing, could be done in 60 to 90 days, assuming we can get all the due diligence and everything done. Again, it depends how reasonably quickly you can get a deal with the seller of the building and what that looks like. But Mark knows the DC market pretty well. If anyone can find a way, he knows the real estate market very well. He's been there for long enough. So, again, it's kind of a backyard for us. We're in Maryland anyway. And, a couple of our board members are bankers in DC. So, we've got a pretty good in with, who we can probably go to on a traditional financing.
So I think another thing that will be helpful, once we fully agree, I'll send an email out between today and tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to find out, what we need to do for our authorizer in the next couple of days. But I think what will be helpful in even us making a decision whether to go towards the traditional route of the new market tax credit would be understanding the figures, right? The cost implications. What are we saving and what are we maybe losing, if anything, by a shorter time frame versus a longer time frame with the new market tax credit.
And right now, with the interest rates the way they are, the new market tax credit still be probably a little cheaper because it's interest only. But right now you're probably at the bottom of the interest rate segment. So even a commercial financing through even a taxable bond with a local bank, might be something we could look at. But there's other possibilities, and of course, there's always the EFF fund, which Mark Deal works with a lot, which is partially backed by the Walton Family Foundation. If they're interested, they could do a long-term financing. It probably, I don't know, is it around 3%, 3.5%, Mark?
Yeah, it's low threes right now. And yeah, Rebecca, I think, we'll look at the different lenders have different kind of criteria they want to hit. And, a traditional bank is going to be focused on appraisal. Well, obviously your financials, but, just given the asking price on this property, I think there might be an pretty significant appraisal gap, even if we did get the price down. Your tax exempt bond investors are more focused on cash flow than they are appraisal. So I think in any event, I think tax exempt bonds might be a very good option. As Al mentioned, the interest rates are in the kind of low to mid threes, depending on if the school gets a rating from S&P, the rating agencies or not. But in any event, we can look at some analysis for some of the different kind of options with respect to sources of funds and give you some sense of kind of what the options are and what might be a good fit.
A tax exempt bond would be a 90 to 120 day, time frame. Probably close to 120 right now at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think in terms of the timeline, as I'll mention, we haven't spoken with the seller yet, but if you get the property under contract in the next 60 days before year end, I think that's probably pretty good. And then, we can kind of get a feel from lenders at the same time. And as I'll mention, it's going to be, a traditional bank would be 60 days, but, bonds would be 90 to 120. So you're looking at really end of first quarter of next year, I think is a realistic target, kind of like that, March, April timeframe of next year.
Okay, sounds good.
You guys, I have to jump. I apologize. This has been really helpful. This is good to hear this directly from you guys. I appreciate it. Rebecca, do you need anything from me before I?
No, I don't think we need a closed session today. You have to leave. A couple of, us have had to jump off. So there aren't any pressing matters to discuss. We'll continue with the board
right.
expansion plan. So yeah, that's
Cool.
fine.
Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it.
See you, Susan. Thank you. We're pretty much, done with the agenda at this point as well. So to wrap up this segment, I will follow up with DCPCSB just to make sure that they are aware of our plans and just to make sure that this process does not require a vote in terms of, because we're not paying outright, but I just have to make sure. And or even a vote to sign the agreement. So I just need to make sure we are doing what we're supposed to do. And once I hear back, I will be in touch. This is definitely taking us towards the right direction. So I'm excited. I'm always excited to save more public dollars for students. So, and that will be more money for us, where we can actually have the modular space and an actual multi-purpose space in the building somewhere on the property somewhere. So that's great. So are there any other items that we need to discuss? Anything else to mention? Any final thoughts, final words? Okay, great. So Carrie?
Oh, no final thoughts. I'm good, yeah.
Okay. So I think I have you both. Well, I have you, Neha and Sharifa. So may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
I can second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
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 Okay. I don't think we have anyone opposed or any abstentions. So yeah.